Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I hope all of you are doing very well today. Continuing with my discussion of the films of Dario Argento. This is the film called Dracula 3D, or Dario Argento's version of Dracula. So this is the film from, I think, 2012, and this was directed, of course, by Dario Argento. It was starring Thomas Kretschmann as Dracula, and also stars Richter Hauer as Van Helsing, and also has Asia Argento as Lucy, and also Marta Gastini as Mina. And it's a very, and other actors, of course, and I think it's a very well, let me also say that it was shot under the pretext of it being presented in 3D, so you have these very interesting CG shots that are designed, I think, to sort of go at you, go at the camera, so to speak. And it's a presentation of the Dracula story. So this is not Bram Stoker's Dracula, this is Dario Argento's Dracula. So this is, what can I say about this film? Well, I will say stuff that is in detail. So if you haven't seen the film, and if you are wary of being spoiled, please stop this video now and come back to this film or this video at any time. Except let me just say that I actually really enjoyed this film to a certain degree, and I'll explain why in a minute. So, but in any event, please come back once you've seen the film, or if you don't mind being spoiled, and we will talk more about this very funny film called Dracula. So, you're back. So, I think this is a hilarious film. And I'm not sure if the filmmakers intended it to be this funny. But I think if the intent of the filmmakers was to make a really scary Dracula film, I think the mission was not a success, because it is not a scary Dracula film. It's too brightly lit. There's too much of in-your-face camera work. There doesn't seem to be any real successful generation of genuine suspense. There might be some at the very beginning when you don't quite know what's going on, but that's pretty much it. And there is none of that high stakes drama that propels one to be really excited and enthralled and just aghast at what's going on. So there's none of that horror element aspect to the film, which would otherwise make a film like this pretty scary. So I wouldn't call this a scary film at all. It is not a scary film. It is a very bloody film. It is a very, it's filled with a lot of bloody special effects, both in camera or practical, as it were, and also CG or computer graphic generated effects. So there is a lot of blood and guts, and a lot of blood and guts, and a lot of nudity, and a lot of naked women, and a lot of showing of a lot of showing of nudity. So this is not a film for kids. But it is a film that is a campy romp. It is a campy romp. So, as I say, as a horror film, it succeeds nothing. It is, I think, is a poor example of a horror film. And so, if you're going to come into this film expecting a horror film from Maestro Dario Argento, you are going to be sorely disappointed. Okay. But there is something going on in this film when I watch it that makes it so just charming. It's so charming that I think it reminds me a lot of my reactions to the film, The Room, the Tommy Wiseau film, The Room. The it's one of those films where I think it's what is the phrase? It's so bad, it's good. And I really think this film is so bad, it's good. It's actually not bad at all. And I think it could be another one of those great campy classics that people go to and just have a fun time. And if you have that attitude, I think this can be one of those films again. I think this is a perfectly legitimate film to look at as being like The Room or something like that. It is a truly camp classic, terrible in many places, but that's part of its charm. For example, the special effects are just bonkers. You've got Thomas Kretschmann, who is just he's so serene in one second, and in the other second he just goes berserk and just like slashes people's throats out and bites them, and he's got blood just around his chin like he's a little dribbling infant who has just eaten too much spaghetti sauce or something, and he just goes at it like no one's business. And you see him chewing at flesh, and it stretches, and that's just one aspect of that. And he just the way he just flings people around and flies around the room, it's amazing. It's like it's like something out of a video game or something, or it's like Mortal Kombat, that video game. But so it's just absolutely out of this world. It's completely bonkers, and I love it. I love the film for that. There are some great scenes as well. When Richter Hauer comes onto the scene. And he comes, I think, rather late in the film, so they save his appearance, Van Helsing's appearance, until maybe in the latter half of the film. I would say even maybe the final third of the film. He doesn't really come until quite late. And when he comes, he's kind of sulking and brooding, and he's this large figure. And of course, he's very famous, Richter Hauer. But the more he's into the film, the more we realize that he's just in it for the ride. I think part of it, you can kind of tell that maybe he kind of knows what's going on, and there's just something quite playful almost in his performance. But at the same time, he is very much into it. He is serious. His Van Helsing is serious and brooding, so he does give it a wonderful, what's the phrase, a gentleman's effort, so to speak. But there are some moments that are just laugh out loud funny, and that last, or one of the final lines, after Mina takes the gun and shoots Dracula, and Dracula just suddenly decomposes, and and at the end, she and Van Helsing embrace. What does he say? He says, "Thank God, I had enough garlic for one bullet." that has to be one of the most epic cheesy lines ever. Thank God I had enough garlic for one bullet. I have to remember that one and see if I can, if there's an occasion I can use that one. So that is another aspect of this really just wildly, just off the wall zany film. And there are moments, there are moments where you have some of the Argento touch, so to speak, or not Argento touch necessarily, but there are moments that remind or recall past Argento greatness. So you have as kind of a gun, and you have a bullet traveling through the mouth in slow motion, and then just blah, and it's all CG, it's computer graphics, but you have that, and it recalls the Stendhal syndrome, and there are certain moments with respect to a bullet traveling through something, and it is a CG effect, and I think it was really effective there. And here it's not as effective, true, but it reminds us of that moment. And of course, there's close-up moments of bullets that we saw very memorably in the film Opera from the late 80s. So there's that moment, and there are moments where you have carrion flies suddenly burst through into a room, and it reminds us, of course, of the famous flies and the use of flies in Phenomena from 1985, so, or the mid-80s, excuse me. So there are moments like that where we can see some of the images that are that could remind us of past Argento greatness. True, they are not maybe as well executed here as they might have been in those previous examples, but still, it's nice to see some of that little touch come back, even if it's only here and there. And I must say that, I mentioned Richter Hauer before, and Thomas Kretschmann, but I really like their performances. I think they are really tonally appropriate, and they are both, in their own measure, just so zany and over the top and just out there with their performances, as I think you should be with a film like this. And I love how Thomas Kretschmann's Dracula just goes for it, and the way he just suddenly opens his mouth and goes like, and just bites people. And you have also, I should say, Marta Gastini, I think her name is, as Mina. I think she's very lovely and very, very good. She's incredibly well-grounded and has a nice stern demeanor about her, and she has just a lovely freshness to her, and I think that's her centered in the middle there of this cover art. So I think she's lovely. Now, well, very, very beautiful, and so I was very charmed by her, and as a result, I was able to be charmed by the story of Mina as she was presenting it in her performance. So it was very nice, and I also liked the other aspects of the film. I liked the idea of Dracula and shape-shifting, and I also liked the idea of the townspeople, and there's some kind of conspiratorial element there. I found that to be very refreshing, and it seemed to be trying to, in some way, breathe some new life into the Dracula story as it has been presented in cinematic form. And so I found all those parts to be quite, I must give kudos for effort, right? Because those are trying to make this fresh. And of course, there's the 3D element, so there's a lot of stuff flying at the camera, a lot of swords and a lot of impaling and a lot of decomposition, and all that's done mostly through CGI and all that. So, and I'm not saying that the CGI is the greatest in the world. On the contrary, I think it's quite poor, and I think the CGI has really aged rather poorly. Still, that notwithstanding, I think it is so fun to see all that stuff. And as I say, I am not one to like everything that Dario Argento has made. If you've seen my past videos on maybe The Card Player, or maybe even Phantom of the Opera, or definitely Giallo, the film Giallo, you will probably know that I am also very unhappy whenever I see a film by Dario or directed by Dario Argento that doesn't do it for me. And so it's very tempting for me to try to look at this as a purely horror film exercise and just be disappointed. But I think this film and just its over-the-topness helps me to look at this film through the different lens that I was just describing. And thus, it is an incredibly funny and fun and entertaining film for me. Now, is it the most entertaining film in the world? Certainly not. Is it a film that I would recommend to everyone? Most certainly not. I would only recommend it to those who are looking for that kind of Tommy Wiseau, The Room type of entertainment. And just with that, I think you will surely find a lot to love about Dario Argento's Dracula. So this is my small way, I suppose, of trying to champion this film, and I hope this encourages you to try to find this film and watch the film. Please, I wouldn't go so far as to spend a lot of money to try to find this film. Maybe if you can, try to find it for a relatively inexpensive price, and don't worry about getting it for too much money. But if you can watch it, please do so, and I would love to hear your thoughts and comments about this film, and maybe, who knows, maybe more people will watch it and maybe get some entertainment and joy out of it as I have. So Anyway, my friends, that's it for me and Dracula. So if you have any questions or comments, please let me know in the comment section below. At this point in time, this is the last film that I will be covering that is directed by Dario Argento, but I will be going next through his television work, and that includes the television film Do You Like Hitchcock? So I will be going through his television work in the next series of videos that hopefully will be up very soon, and that will conclude my series on the films of Dario Argento. And so so that is my plan going forward, and I know it's not an Argento work, but just to let you know, later this week in Japan, this is now January 2019, but later this week, Suspiria, the so-called remake of Suspiria, is going to be opening in theaters here at last. So I hope to be able to get all of my Argento films videos up by that time. I know it's not an Argento-directed film, the remake of Suspiria, but still there's a little bit of a thematic connection, obviously. So that should be a nice occasion to wrap everything up here and to go forward. So until we meet again, my friends, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep watching a lot of great, great movies. Cheers.